Good afternoon and welcome to the special meeting of the Downtown Design Review Committee. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Anthony Blatt.
Here.
Corey Bates. Gary Jones.
Here.
Julie Kriegel. Deborah Richards. Mariana Sadora. Here. Rosie Trujillo. Here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Item number 2 on the agenda is approval of the minutes. If you have any comments on the minutes, otherwise I'll entertain a motion.
I move we accept the minutes.
I second.
That is a Jones trio motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 is cases withdrawn, and there are 2. DTCA 18-00125 and DTCA 19-00003. Item 4 is continuance requests. And we will have one item that needs to be continued. That is item A, which is DTCA 18-00053 at 905 North Hudson Avenue, because we'll have a conflict. So I'll entertain a motion for continuing that item.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Continued to So that item will be continued to August 15th. So item 5 is the consent docket. There are 2 items, DTCA 19-00079 and DTCA 19-00081. And if there are no reasons for one of these items to be pulled, then I'll entertain a motion for the consent docket.
So move.
A motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So item 6 is cases for individual consideration, and item B will be DTCA 18-00107 at 229 Northwest 9th Street. Is the applicant present? Yes. And Laura, do you want to tee this up?
For those of you who are new, and we have all of those here today, and we appreciate you're here, this item came before the committee back in 2017 for work that had been done without approval. And there were concerns at that time about the work that was done, and that application actually was ultimately denied by the committee. Unfortunately, because of how much work that had been done, it just sat there, and then the work continued, and it's almost finished. And so we have a new application for consideration today. And in the staff report, we did discuss the fact that given the amount of work that's been done, it would be extremely difficult to return the building to what it used to look like. You could, but it'd be very difficult. And so in staff's recommendation, we are looking at making what they've done is there's some modifications that can be done so that we can actually go forward with an approval and get this closed out, because it's essentially been a code enforcement case for several years now. So this, there are 2 buildings. One is the tan brick and one is the red brick, and they're connected, and they were built at different times. And the red brick building did not have a street presence previously, and that is what they have added. And as we stated in the staff report, in our rehabilitation guidelines, it talks about not adding doors and windows where they were, but staff felt adding the doors and windows actually allows the building to engage with pedestrians, which we feel is a real positive at this location. So the discussion in 2017 was, how can we make these buildings work as one, because they look like 2, because they have 2 different colors. So the applicant is asking for the possibility of painting, either painting the red brick buff or painting the buff brick red. Staff was suggesting to go with, we felt maybe the buff brick might be a better fit because the red, painting the red doesn't come across sometimes as well. A lot of times it fades, and and also if you go with the buff brick, that allows it to kind of work in with the stone that they added on the buff brick so that it would look as one cohesive development. We'll point out, too, that previously they'd been approved to paint the buff brick gray back in 2014. So there's a few pieces in the loading dock area they've done, but this is the area on their parking lot side where they were trying to figure out which gray. And so we included that in the staff report to make sure that whatever color they paint, we're going to make sure that this gets painted. It'll either be painted buff or it'll be painted red with the rest of it. And here's an area on the back where they actually did paint the gray. The other thing that we pointed out in here is there were some openings that were smaller. They made them bigger, which works. The only issue staff had dealt with one particular opening, which is this lower window, and we'll get back to the sidewalk here in a minute. The lower window, there had been a small window, and there's an arch actually in the brick, and the window they put in is wider than the window that was there, so it doesn't actually work with the arch. It's wider than the windows above it, and they have agreed that they're going to actually replace that, so it's the same width as the windows above it, and staff feels that that is a real positive step. The other issue that you have before you is when they cut the building, they cut the sidewalk down to allow them to put the doors in, and when they did that, we ended up with 2 levels of sidewalk that they installed. And so there's currently stairs in the sidewalk, a gate, and the fence. And so what they're proposing to do to try and make that better is to remove the stairs, put a ramp that runs adjacent to the building. They would be extending this piece of the railing/fence to the south in this direction, and the gate could be removed at that point. And then they're proposing to put a railing on the building itself to help people going down that ramp when that's needed. The other thing they're doing is at the north end, right now there's this retaining wall, so there's a pinch point. It's very narrow between the retaining wall and that railing. And so they're proposing to take out this piece of the retaining wall and straighten it so that we end up with the width that we need. Now, we discussed the specific widths and compared it to some other cases, some that you guys have been in on, most of them Tony has been on, to do some comparisons with where we've had to deal with restricted areas for sidewalks when you have grade issues or where you have issues with trying to get into a building with accessibility. So with all of that being said, and I'm be glad to answer any questions that you might have, since it is a very long staff report. Staff is recommending approval as proposed by the applicant. We kind of like the idea of doing everything to the buff color, but both of those options are before you for consideration.
Can you put the rendering
Yes,
on the...
let me get to them. Sorry. The one thing we pointed out is, and there were some older pictures, just so you can get an idea of what it used to look like when it had literally no street presence. At one point, it didn't have any of the windows in it. They were all boarded up, and that was before they cut it down. But the, let me get to, okay. So here's the rendering they submitted to go with the buff. I would say the stone kind of has a purplish hue in this rendering, and it's more brown, so it actually works better. Staff noted that this is the one for the red option. It's really not, the red is really red, and it's not a red in variegated colors, so it's not really accurate. If they make it match the red, it will be really red. So this is the one that we felt, and it would work really well with the black, the black canopies in this case.
Yes, and I wanted to speak to this rendering real quick. Laura just enumerated all the little things that happen in terms of scope of work, but staff has been working with the applicant for many months. We're trying to say what is the most straightforward way we can get to a cohesive aesthetic that still meets the guidelines and just gets something that can be attractive and activated. And I think the applicant has taken all our suggestions on how to do that.
Do we have any questions for staff? With respect to the awnings, is that a future? There's awnings, there's signage, those items would be coming
But
before.
the signage is not part of your
Right.
packet at all. I thought the awnings were in here, weren't they?
Yeah, the awnings are in there, but there is a part in the staff report that does show that we're going to come back at a later date to review the signage.
Okay.
So today, the main focus today was going to be on the actual facade of the building right now. So when we come up with a better idea for the awnings, for the signage, we'll present that to you all in another application. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. My name is John Pat Dickinson. I'm one of the associates with Mr. LaFuente, who's the actual applicant.
Okay. If we don't have any questions for staff, then welcome. Do you have anything further you want to add to what Laura presented?
At this point, no. There are a couple of things that we're going to be doing, as soon as possible. A couple of our biggest concerns as we go through the process, if you all are okay with the application today and we get the approval, what the timelines are going to be for us to need to have everything completed. And then outside of that, if there's any other suggestions that you guys might have or questions that you have for me. I'm kind of here at your mercy today to get as much as we can done. So,
Do we have any questions for the applicant? I do have one question in regards to the paint material that you're planning on using.
Okay.
When you're painting over an old masonry product like this, and one that, and I would agree, the red looks like it's more maybe receptive for paint than definitely painting the blonde brick, I think, is a chance for something to age not as well. So when we're talking about the paint for the brick and the preparation for painting for the brick, what kind of investigation have you done with respect to the materials that you're going to use?
unfortunately, we haven't gotten that part quoted out because we wanted to make sure before we started doing all that the committee was going to end up being okay with the painting of the brick. I know that that's kind of something that we've been trying to steer away from in this district. However, the way the building was originally put together when they put the second part to it, there's really no other way around it. The only other way I could see is if we restored the red brick and then kept the separate colors. So our thought was, let's find out if you guys are going to be okay with the painting of the brick to make it all one unison color. And then from there, we've got a couple of different contractors that we've spoken with that can come out and give us that bid. It will obviously not be us doing it. We'll make sure that it's going to be something that's going to have at least a 10 to 20 year warranty on it. So
I do think that considering the fact that you're going to paint over something that is an older brick, there would be some care and concern that you'd want to make sure that you took whenever you were selecting both the prep work, the primer, and the paint. That's one of the reasons why going over that red bid brick might be a little more complicated than going over the blonde. Mm-hmm. But that could be coordinated with staff depending upon how the committee votes today.
okay.
And then with respect to the clearance down at the bottom, I can see the graphic that you've created with respect to reconfiguring the retaining wall and making it to where you don't have a pinch point, but that seems to be going right into a vehicular point. Are you going to be including some tactile surfaces and other elements that would help with visually impaired individuals?
Yes. So what will happen on
Sorry,
that
that's
is
this way.
if you can. Thank you.
Whoops, is it this way or no? It's the other way. Sorry.
Almost there.
I'm trying to remember. I thought that was.
You were close. We have the perfect picture of it. I might be able to
I know that.
tell you which one it.
Yeah,
which
that's why
one
I'm
it
trying to get to it. So.
has. Page 4 on mine here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I gotcha. So it's one of my PowerPoints. The one looking south.
That one right there.
that one right there.
That one right there.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is where you see that retaining area there, that was already there originally. So we're going to extend the sidewalk out this way and create a full retainment that's going to separate the parking lot from the actual sidewalk there. And then that will separate the entire entrance zone there. So that way if somebody is coming that way, there's an obvious drive-in where you're going to drive into park. And then your first parking spot will be up where you see right there. So that would be your first parking spot. So there will be clear separation.
And
With lines.
I'm curious about in the direction of pedestrian traffic. So the individual who's walking, if somebody is visually impaired, will they walk into the drive lane? without understanding that they've stepped off of the
So will there be like a
pedestrian way.
curb or something just to
Will
show?
there just be you see them at curb ramps, some kind of a tactile strip
Okay.
where somebody understands I'm getting ready to step into the automobile way. And I can't tell because the site plan that you've created actually kind of tapers off on that portion. It doesn't delineate where it occurs with respect to the back of the parking space.
And to be honest with you, now that you brought that to my attention, that's something that we had not discussed on that point. So I like that suggestion a lot. Maybe
We can mark that up on the.
That can
on
be
the
coordinated with staff as
plans.
well.
we can, yes, we can get you a rendering of that if we need to.
Do we have any other comments from?
No, the question I have is that based on the conversation with the changes that you indicated you're going to mark up, does that need to be modified in the motion or the motion stands?
We can just mark, we'll just mark it up.
Okay, then I move that we approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in section C and D of the staff report.
I'll second.
Can I ask a question? Were you wanting to dictate either red or buff, or were you wanting that option to remain available to them as they explore the paint and let their paint people tell them what might be the best option?
Well, I thought it was going to be the buff, but I have
just
no
asking.
preference, but I guess that is a conversation that we need to have, so I'll withdraw that for right now, just in case someone wants to have a conversation about the red versus the buff.
What are your thoughts on, and this is where you're going to get into the paint that you will want to provide to achieve the red and hold the tint and not become a pink building, is going to be far more expensive than the buff will be. And it might weather much better. So that might be something that you would offer to select, and then it could be delineated in the motion.
You know, at this point, I think we're more interested in getting the approval of what the committee would prefer us to do than for us to decide on our choice. So if there's a direction that the committee would propose that we would go, we'll go that direction.
Yes, staff would prefer that the committee pick the color, and if for whatever reason it becomes clear that it's not going to work out, we can come back with an alternative.
That's perfect.
So thoughts, ladies?
No, I'm okay with that.
Okay. So then I will make the motion that we approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in section C and D of the staff report, and that we approve the buff, is that the color? For the final renovation.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
One quick question is, and maybe I can ask Laura when we get done here, but at this point now, does this mean we are good to continue on to finish the project as we've decided today?
Yeah, there's a 10-day appeal period.
Okay.
At the end of the 10 days, we'll send you approval paperwork, and then you're good. I'm not sure what I think you still need some building permits, and you need a revocable permit for the ramp.
Yep.
And
So-
the sidewalk work,
Right.
all of the sidewalk work, yeah. So
So it's time, so then at that point.
it's 10 business days, and like I did over the week, I will email that to you.
It's perfect.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you all very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, but if you don't have your permit, your building permit paperwork in, you should get it in as
Okay.
soon as possible.
Perfect. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you guys very much.
Item C is DTCA 19-00080 at 111 North Dewey Avenue. Is the applicant present? Okay. Laura, do you want to present this?
I'll speak
Okay.
to this one. This is some more work on St. Anthony campus. We've processed dozens, if not scores, of applications on the campus over the years. They need to install some oxygen tanks, or is it the tanks or the emergency generator?
Today, it's the emergency generator.
Yeah. for the oxygen. Emergency generator, the generator is required to be screened because it's so tall and because it faces the street. It exceeds the maximum fence height because the maximum fence height is 8 feet, but it needs to be 12 feet in order to screen it. That's the front yard fence, so the maximum fence height is 4 feet, but it needs to be 12 feet to actually screen it. There's a very similar, it was the oxygen tanks for the similar installation nearby that the committee approved a similar fence that also needed a variance for the same reason on the other end of the building.
Do we have any questions for staff?
Hi, I'm Amanda LaBrosse with Miller Architects on behalf of SSM Health. We are proposing to place the emergency generators underneath what used to be, well, what will be demolished, the canopy, since we no longer use that entrance. We were to place the generator up on the 5th floor roof, but due to the weight of the generator and we can't access it with the crane to get it to that height. Since we are no longer using that entrance, that gave us the perfect spot to put the generator, since the hospital is landlocked and they don't have any other available options. We're proposing to use the Master Line 16 panel. For its cleanliness, it is an architecturally designed panel, and it will have concealed fasteners. So it will have a more attractive appearance, and we also propose to use that for the roof screen that will be on the same facade.
I'll point out there is also included in this application is the miscellaneous renovation work relative to demolishing the porte cochere, installing some new doors and windows, and redoing the site work immediately around the building.
Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Then my understanding is we need to do this in 2 motions.
I do have, I'm going to do one.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to do one. With respect to your screen wall, you're showing it as 12 feet tall, you're showing it as 8 foot between the posts, and you're showing no secondary supports. Is that wall intended to be supported by some type of a delegated design system? Because 8 foot of span and 12 feet tall seems like more than that panel is going to be able to hold, but the post just says reference structural. We don't see the structural in here.
Yes, it will be structurally designed to support itself.
Okay. And then the other thing is you provide a sight line with respect to the screen wall that's on the roof, but I didn't see an equivalent sight line detail been done with respect to the generator. Since it's at grade, is the generator 12 feet tall or is it
9 foot 10.
9 foot 10? So if the generator is 9'10", do we need a 12 foot tall wall to screen it at grade? Is there a reason from a sightline standpoint that it needs to be the additional 26 inches tall?
As long as the generator is in fact 9 foot 10, until we can confirm that, we were going to leave it at 12 feet to make sure that there's going to be an additional foot of clearance above that. But other than that, no, it could be shorter.
Okay, so 12 foot tall right next to the pedestrian right of way seems a little bit out of scale when you're walking by.
It should be as tall as it needs to be to screen it, but no taller.
But no taller.
Okay.
So, and that could be done with the equivalent type of sightline diagram, just coordinated with staff whenever you get your final approval. But if it could be shortened, even 26 inches, I think that would be drastically different, so close as it is to the sidewalk.
Okay.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay.
Wait. If it's a decision of the committee to reduce the height, I would like that recorded in the minutes. I mean, in the motion. So are we saying 10 feet?
I think it's,
11?
Sorry, yes, maybe 8. With the sidewalk size, you don't see it.
no taller than as required
Yeah.
to screen.
Okay.
And so the diagram should present it. And if it's a 10-foot tall generator at grade, adjacent, or even across the street, you should be able to be a little bit lower than the 10 feet and still fully screen the generator.
Okay.
and we'll still do it with the condition of the variance in case it's, because for sure it's going to be taller than what's allowed.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, we had talked about going forward with the motion. Do we need to add the additional information as far as the height requirements, and does that need to be included in the recommendation on the variance or in the motion that we're recommending to the staff?
I would just include it in the motion. One of the conditions of the motion would be to provide a diagram to staff to confirm the minimum height, and then the second condition will be the variance.
Okay. All right. I move that we approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in Section C and D of the staff report, with the condition that a diagram be sent to staff to confirm the minimum height, and that the applicant shall obtain a variance from the Board of Adjustments from the maximum fence height requirement.
I have a motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do you want to give a second motion?
Yes, and the second motion is to provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustments for a variance from the maximum fence height requirement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So item 7 on the agenda is other business, and there is none. Item 8 is communications, and we have several items. It's been a busy month under your administrative approvals. None to speak to specifically? No questions? Okay. Then item 9 is comments from the planning staff.
We have a meeting next month. Please check your calendars. If you're unable to make it, let Paula know as soon as you know. And summer's a tough month to try and come up with a quorum, but we do have some items, and we would like to move them forward and get them before you in August.
Comments from the committee members? Okay, next meeting date is August 15th, and we are adjourned.